Hey, thanks everyone. I think a lot of you have seen my presentations. I think it's probably the first one where I think I'm giving some real bad news, so to speak. I always like to bring good, exciting news. So bear with me. But what I mainly want to do is help people make the best of this market, and and potentially sometimes just save money, avoid losing more in their investments. So what I'm going to talk about today, of course, is the crypto equities red flag. I'm also going to go over Bitcoin and show where Bitcoin is in the market. And I'm not at all very bearish on Bitcoin action, concerned maybe a bit. And there's always potential that what we see in crypto equities are suggesting something more in Bitcoin, but right now it's been in pretty good shape despite its big drawdown. But I want to make sure you guys don't lose, more money if you're trading mostly in your brokerage accounts, and talk about some points there to help you make the most out of those accounts. Let's see. Always, if you want to take a free trial of the service, again, we don't take credit cards. You can just join up, take 15 days free trial, and then if it's not for you, no problem. You can just not basically not issue billing, and that would be the left QR code. And if you like a copy of this presentation, just use the right side. I'll give about I don't know, a second and a half, and if we go to Q&A, I'll jump back on the slide so you can get it at the end. All right, I'll skip my intro. I think Dylan did a great job. Just a few of my calls. Again, I'm not going to read through them, but you'll notice the last one. I still do expect 100K Bitcoin. I know I've said it over the last year. We've just simply been in what we call a wave 4 flat correction that's gone over for more than a year, but I do expect we'll set that up. But I'll always talk about contingencies. And then again, disclaimer, again, anything I say here may not necessarily be for you personally. I'm not a licensed advisor. I'm simply an analyst on a trading website. And so anything I say here, you should do your own work, make sure you're comfortable with it before you do any deploying of funds. All of my work is based on the Elliott wave theory. I think most of you know that if you've seen my past talks. It basically states that any asset class moves in trends that are built by 5 waves. Each of those 5 waves themselves, well, the wave 1, 3, and 5, which are the motive waves of the trend forward moving waves, they are also divided into 5 waves, and then corrective waves 2 and 4 move in 3 waves back. And then as you see on here, just pointing out that these 5 waves here lead to one larger wave 1, 2, and that portends, of course, a larger wave 3. So it's just that fractal in nature. Also, the waves tend to have a mathematical relationship to each other, so it gives us very clear pivot points in the marketplace to validate our counts, but also to take trades on. Okay, so let's hit Bitcoin real quick. You may have seen the slide in past talks, and I want to talk about how it evolved. As I've said previously, I really didn't want to see 24K break, and we obviously did in the last couple weeks. What that does is sends the count, and again, it's using that mathematical validation, sends that count into this lower red wave 4 that also raises the entire degree of the count and essentially lops off the free 4 and 5. Well, the 4 and 5 that would have propelled this well over 125K. In fact, I had a top end of 270K for this 5. So we basically lost that. And we've got our last bit of support for this red count at 16K. We've held 17,100 in the last week, so it's sort of do or die here. The positive thing I could say is that I really like the reversal off the low. It may not hold. We may get another low as long as it holds 16 and bounces. But I think there's actually a very good chance in the last week that we have bottomed. Okay, so I would say the next milestone that I want to see, and I'll flip to the slide, the next milestone that I want to see is for this to move back over 24,600. And that's a key level of resistance, again, based on the mathematical relationships of the waves. That's a key pivot point above. And right now we've taken the first reversal, and should be coming down in the next 1 day or 2. And that'll be testing the lows. And as long as we stay over the lows, that's really good. And if we do break the lows, we really want to hold 16K. That's what sets up a run to 128K. This target's been actually moved up, as I said in the last slide, with losing a degree that puts this 5 into a higher degree 5. That gives us a slight little bump in the target. And again, that's just based on the mathematical relationship of the waves. So very typical. So Another thing I want to say about all of the charts in here, I think a really important concept is, and I do this throughout the service as well as my colleague Jason, who helps run the service. Any box that I color blue is a considered support pivot. Okay, and let me say very clearly that I never take these blue pivots for granted. It may be sometimes that if one breaks, we've got one below. Sometimes we don't. And when we get to the minors that have broken, I'm going to show you very clearly that when these things break, quite often, especially if we don't have a support level below, it doesn't just break, but it annihilates. And we've seen that in minors in the last last month. And so one thing, say very clearly in the service, anytime we break support and I can't determine one very reliable below, I basically yell the sort of trading room version of, look out below. And so that's also to say that every time I share a chart in Money Show or in the service, it's not to say that every single pivot holds. It's just that simply that you can take a very low risk trade in those blue boxes because the stop is very tight. So if you're very patient on your trades, you're not entering on the way down, you wait till you get into that area, you have a very, very low risk trade. And that's very much the name of the game in trading. It's not always being right. It's just having a very defined risk and have a very low risk on the risk side, and then having a nice target on the gain side. So that's basically how you trade for a living. All right, so we're going to go through, what are the types of crypto equities that you can find your brokerage. I probably have to speed up a bit because I wandered on those slides a little bit. But there's funds that with crypto and underlying, Bitcoin miners, exchanges and liquidity providers, consulting service technology firms that are sort of tangentially supporting the crypto industry. And then there's simply companies with crypto exposure. I'm going to kind of move through them very quickly and spend a little bit more time on the miner side. But in some of the other areas, I'm just going to highlight quick charts that I think are in a really good spot and what you want to use in your brokerage account if you're going to want to invest in this space going forward. So first of all, we've got when we talk about funds with the crypto as an underlying, we've of course got all of the grayscale funds. The only two that I trade here are GBTC based on Bitcoin, and then ETHE based on Ether. I avoid the others. I basically don't like the coin charts. And then lastly, I would say if you really want to trade Bitcoin in your brokerage accounts right now and you can't take any Bitcoin on the coin itself, I would center around Bido. And if you do get a chance, go check out a Money Show presentation I did on Bido. I'm sure it's on YouTube. I'm sorry I don't have the link, but I do a real good job of talking about a Bido strategy using options if you're open to playing options with it. And I'm not talking about options like gambling with out of the money options. I'm talking about using options for income. So it's a very good one. It's that presentation is still a good one to review. I will move quickly to the GBTC chart. This is basically taken the problem I illustrated in that last presentation, which just the discount keeps getting deeper, or if you want to say the premium keeps disappearing. It disappeared a long time ago, but we just keep getting deeper discount. I think we hit 40% discount versus the underlying. It's still intact in terms of this target, but what we call this now is a diagonal where we call basically Bitcoin a large impulse. And that just means that we've gone really low in the fourth. We've crossed the wave one, which is a danger spot in Elliott wave. It does leave us at a diagonal. If we break through this two at 5, I've got nothing. So even though Bitcoin is sitting very bullishly, GBTC is really tenuous. Although I would say, like Bitcoin, we've got a pretty good, nice reversal off the lows. It's not illustrated in this chart. I haven't updated yet, but it looks actually pretty good. So I would say next milestone, get over 20 in GBTC, and we're not out of the woods, but that'd be the next step of progression off the lows. Bitcoin miners, and this is where I'm going to stick around a bit. So of course we got hot mining, Hive mining, Marathon, Riot. Riot went bad a long time ago. I believe I shared in recent presentations. We have some speculative ones, and to be honest, I don't even look at them anymore because of the condition of this entire sector. But that's Bit mining, Sphere 3D. I left one out here, a really solid chart, which I'll show you guys later. And it's about the only miner I find where I'm willing to put new money into. And I'll show that a little bit. So when we go to these, let me first quick talk about, why is it so hard to be a Bitcoin miner? I've shared this before, and I've written extensive articles on this. But I find often my subscribers make a very poor analogy to gold mining. And I'll tell you why it's a very poor analogy. So they don't leverage Bitcoin prices the same way that miners do. Well, they don't leverage Bitcoin, obviously. They leverage miner metal values. But one is production. The product production cost rises with the price of Bitcoin, and basically Bitcoin has a mechanism called network difficulty. And when more miners come online, it gets harder to mine Bitcoin, and so you got more turns of the machines, more energy usage as the network difficulty goes up. Now, of course, as Bitcoin rises, more miners want to come on, right? So you have this competition that goes on, and so just as you think your Bitcoin is gonna make you rich, all of a sudden it becomes more difficult to mine. The other thing about miners is they have a very fast equipment depreciation cycle. I actually checked on this a little bit with subscribers that are in the business, and it's 1 to 2 years before they've got to redo all of their miner machines. That's really terrible, actually. I mean, think about, you're mining gold and you've got, maybe some heavy lifters and some, whatever other equipment they would be using for mining. Maybe you've got some heavy equipment, you got to rebuild an engine after like 5 or 10 years. You're not flipping your entire equipment inventory every 1 to 2 years, and that's essentially what miners are required to do. Makes it very difficult. And of course, now Bitcoin miners have had particular headwinds of late. Energy costs have been rising immensely. Some of them have contracts, so that's good. And then the crazy thing, I don't know if I've ever seen this, but network difficulty has kept rising while Bitcoin price lost 60%. I mean, it's a horrible environment for miners right now. And that will change. At least Bitcoin price can go back up. The problem is many miners sold Bitcoin near the recent lows to cover the cost of operations. Not a lot of them have been public about it, but one Bitfarms came out and said that they sold 3,000 Bitcoin in the last couple of weeks just to keep their balance sheet whole. This YouTube link there's a guy, Nick Carter, who's smart about this industry. I don't want to call him, just a standout expert, but pretty knowledgeable. And he talked about this going on, and he spends a lot of time talking to miners. Now, selling Bitcoin here is really bad. I mean, they've lost the chance to leverage that Bitcoin price as it starts to find a bottom. So really, really, really terrible. I wish they would do a lot more hedging. They'd be a lot better businesses. But anyway, all right, move on. So again, this is kind of sort of the parade of shame, hive mining. This is just a small breach of support. I hold a small position of Hive. I hold a small position of all of these shares, but believe me, I'm not putting any new money into them until I see really, really strong reversal, and we have not seen enough off the lows. But you can see how far we're below support. This one, Marathon, quite a bit below support. Pretty bad. And then Hut Mining, and again, I'm not even going to show you Riot because it went below support many months ago. That business is in really bad spot, or at least the chart is. But it's also a guy I know who tracks the fundamentals. It's not been in a great spot fundamentally. All right, so Hut is the worst of this sort of parade of shame. But again, Riot would be a lot worse. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of good news here. This little jewel. You can see this is really right at the edge of support. Now I'm using, this is Argo Mining, and I'm using Argo on the London exchange because it's got all of the data. I actually can't map out this support level off American data, which is ARBK on the NASDAQ. But I haven't put new money into this, but I have sold a cash covered put, and I may do several of those over the next coming days. They're actually pretty heavy premium, like January, I think it was $5 ARBK strike price, and I believe I got close to $2 premium. So nearly 50% of the cost of the share is covered with that premium received for January put. So pretty good. That's the way I'm approaching starting to scale into this. But this is in pretty good spot. Now the difficulties, I can't really give you a target. This is in pence. That's how they price in the London exchange, and you've got 1100 up here and 30 down here. I don't know what that means in terms of NASDAQ, but obviously we'll get the same amount of gain, so I have to use the London chart to track it because I don't have a very good target in US dollars until I get some more structure out of this off the bottom. But what's cool about this is that we've got really tight, we've got the edge of support here. We can use the bottom as a stop. So again, talking about earlier, using the boxes and then the structure of price as developing a really tight stop, limiting your risk. and then getting this nice targeted course, which is, we call it giants. That's some big skew, basically big risk to reward. All right, so that's the good news. But again, I want to go back, just highlighting what's happened both in the fundamental condition of miners based on these headwinds that I explained. At the same time, I've given you several that have utterly destroyed support and kept going and really haven't even given us a strong reversal off the lows. One that qualifies for me as a strong reversal off the lows, even with Bitcoin potentially reversing. Exchange liquid providers. I've been a big fan of Galaxy and Voyager in the past. These charts have been destroyed. I'm going to share Voyager. I'm still trading Galaxy as sort of a nominal break of support, but Voyager has been utterly destroyed. Coin, I'm just starting to scale in. It's too early for me to give a chart. I actually like that one based on a fundamental basis as well as the potential of the technicals, because it started to reverse. It was been in a downtrend since IPO, and I kind of like the structure off the low, so I'm just playing with it. Very low, small position. It's a little too early for a chart. But basically, Voyager Digital has been, this is my previous chart. This was my support, 488 Canadian. And then we go to this chart and you can see how much has been decimated. So low that I've labeled this ABC, which means this is a corrective rally. This is really a disaster. It's possible that we get what's called a large diagonal in this, and we've only seen wave one, but I'm gonna have to see a lot more out of it. What's interesting about this one is they have admitted to having liquidity problems with customer funds based on some lending and borrowing they've done. And that I don't know if you know FTX, which is one of the largest exchanges globally. They Sam Bankman-Fried, a whiz kid billionaire who founded the exchange, they had to lend Voyager like something like 200 million or something like that. I don't quote me on that. It's just a big number to help them basically stay out of trouble. So a lot of times we see the break of the chart before the fundamentals become apparent or hit the news. And as subscribers in Elliott, I warned as soon as we broke support way up there at 5. I said, hey, what I did was I cut all of my US position, which is VYGVF, and I kept a very minimal kind of a remnant position in Voyage after that break of support. And by golly, here we are, just another 60% down, or actually close to 70% down. So again, from my standpoint, blue boxes are gold. You may say, hey, there's not a lot of prediction in those blue boxes. Well, we've seen enough of them hold over years, but right now I'm standing before you saying a lot of these things have broken, a lot of these have broken, and we run for the hills. We just get out. Or like I said, leave a very small remnant position, but do not have big risk on. And I don't know where this one's going to recover, honestly. I don't have any valid support below it, so it's just a disaster. All right, and then in the past, I've shown Silvergate, DMGI, these are tech basically, and then DeFi Technologies are basically sort of technology firms in the area. I still like Silvergate, which is a bank that funds a lot of the exchanges, does some lending and whatnot. And this chart's actually in a buy zone, very close to support. So again, 47 support. You can go a little bit below that. You start to do bearish consolidation below it, get the heck out. But this is a good spot to add position, so I'm adding here. So I'm giving you some good news too, but it just isn't in crypto miners. And then finally, the last chart I want to warn on is MicroStrategy. Again, this is a fund that's basically a technology firm that has put a lot of their balance sheet into crypto. It has, for a lot of my subscribers, it's been one of their main trades in their brokerage firms. But this chart, I had support at 360 and it's decimated it. So I don't know where we're at now. We're in single digits. But after we left, we dropped 460. You can see my little blue box here where we got out and we just kept tumbling. So again, that's a great example of how these blue boxes work. And it comes again down to the mathematical relationship of the waves. And I discount here may look very bullish, but it's not reliable. I don't consider, this is basically me forcing a count on something that has turned into a complete mess. I have no intention right now to go back to MSTR. I mean, the fundamentals of it, well, I still own that Bitcoin, although they've had lots of threats and margin calls of late. We don't know if they've been doing anything under the hood that may come out in the next few weeks. I just have a chart that's getting decimated. If it ever shows a pattern that's bullish again, I certainly will say so. I'm not biased, but this MicroStrategy is in really bad shape. Now the good news, I do like Square, well, SQ, formerly known as Square, now Block. It actually is in a very tight, again, risk to reward. This may sound like a very lofty count with 2,000 target. Ignore the time frame. I don't think it'll be there in 2 years. Well, none of my time frames apply, but price levels do. And as long as it holds 49, which we're sitting 58 when this shot was taken, I don't know if that. See, I shot that Saturday, so that we're going to be a little bit different today. But that's pretty tight risk to reward again, and this count is undermined below 49. No sign of a strong reversal yet, though. All right, so just takeaways. Bitcoin may have bottomed last week. Again, we'll see 1771. I like the look of it at least. Ideally, setting up that long-awaited run to 100K. Without investing coin directly, honestly, investors may not be able to capture that return. The only real pure play I have for you is Bido. Again, I would just go back. Bido is the ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF. I don't think I said that previously. I would just go back on presentation if you're interested in that option strategy. It is one that I deploy myself. The mining sector suffered. Investors should not assume Bitcoin mining stocks will offer solid leverage on Bitcoin prices. They've just been destroyed. And again, if they're selling at the bottom, they don't have the Bitcoin to leverage the return fundamentally off this Bitcoin reversal. And so, I mean, you can spend all of your time digging into the fundamentals, see if you find any jewels, dig into the balance sheet, try to figure out whether they sold any. That can be pretty tough digging. I just read charts. Some people think I'm nuts for keeping at that level, but the charts do tell me a lot. And the worst mining culprits may not even make new all-time highs. I still have a lot of all-time highs pointed on my chart. I just consider them very, very unreliable to get there based on the action we've seen the last month. And that is it. If you want again trial, I'll go back to the QR code, but you can also follow me on Twitter at @rwillday. And so I'll take questions now. And let me zoom back to that QR code if you want to get the presentation or take a trial. Did the presentation?
There we go.
Okay. Did everyone get the presentation then?
Everyone got the presentation. It just looks like my stream just dropped out incrementally there. Looks like we're back and we have a couple of questions for you.
Good.
First question is, what is your opinion on Hive blockchain? Still the most reliable miner?
No, the chart I shared earlier broke support. Not just broke it, but demolished it. So I shared that. I have a small position. I'm going to get to that chart real quick. I have a small position, but with it consolidating under support and still not showing a strong bottom. Again, once we break these blue boxes, I don't feel confident in the chart. So no.
Next question we have is, where do you see the VYGVF stock going from here?
That is, again, I shared that one as well. So VYGVF. And VOYG, same thing, and VYGVF broke support, demolished it. I do not have any support below this, so I got out of my position. Like I cut my position when it crossed 5 Canadian. I don't know what that is in US dollar. I trade this one on the Canadian exchange because it's more liquid. So I do not have any prospects for this chart at all until it shows some form of a reversal, and it has not yet.
Building off Voyager, what are your comments on Luna?
Luna, the coin, I'm very glad to have gotten subscribers out of it. We were calling for a top back in January, arguably a little early. We got a 6x trade on it last year, and one of us wrote an article about that. Got the heck out, and I would not touch it to this day. It is a broken ecosystem and a broken coin. Don't touch it.
Thank you so much for that. Next question we have is, do you see Ethereum as potentially having bottomed as well?
Yeah, it potentially has. And my target on Ethereum is 10K, roughly.
Good to know. What are your thoughts on Galaxy Digital?
It also broke through support, as I shared earlier. I've got a small position. Sorry, I don't have a chart or any levels to share, but it's got a small break of support, but has been trying for a reversal pattern. So we'll see. It's more TBD.
Thank you so much for that. Next question we have here is, I have some Riot in my stock account. Should I hold it or sell?
I don't, again, I cannot give personal advice. I am not licensed. That's not doable. I just do not have strong prospects for it. I don't have a strong target. It's broken all support. Again, it's a lot like Voyager Digital, actually, in the chart structure.
Thank you so much for that. Is BITO the best BTC replicant other than GBTC?
Yeah, it's be it by, again, I would get the presentation that I shared on presented for Money Show for Bido, and I don't, again, I don't know where it's available, probably in YouTube. I did write a Seeking Alpha article about it, but basically it has a very minimal decay based on the rolling of futures within the fund. I explained that mechanism. You can make that up via option selling, but that's the closest you're going to get in the American market. GBTC continues to bleed now is basically a 40% discount. We don't know whether that's going to come back or not. There's also, I mean, there's of course the gamble that it becomes a spot ETF, and then that 40% will disappear instantly and give you a 40% return. But that's a gamble. I mean, the SEC has been pretty clear; they're pretty negative on spot ETF approvals.
Thank you
I
so
recommend
much for
Bido.
that.
Yep.
Next blockchain system we have thoughts on is Solana.
Without a chart, it's pretty hard to explain, but I don't see it doing new all-time highs in the coming year or two, or even maybe more than that. Don't have a strong view on it. I own some, but that doesn't mean it's a great trade.
Thank you so much for that. Next question we have here is, what are your thoughts on Mara and Riot, and can you possibly share the Mara chart again?
I can share the Mara chart again. It broke support, slaughtered it really. And sorry, what was the other one? The other one, I don't.
The other one was Riot.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, I just talked about Riot. I have no strong prospects for Riot. I don't have a strong view in this. I don't have a strong point of view that this will hit this all-time high based on this break support. Is the entire point of this presentation. So we'll see if we can see if we can get a reversal. Then maybe there's something to talk about. But right now there isn't.
Circling back to Bitcoin, do you see Bitcoin going to the $12,000 to $13,000 range like many other Elliott wave analysts?
It depends. If it breaks 17,100, that's certainly possible. But then I've got strong support at 16K.
If Bitcoin breaks,
I think
16K,
it bottomed. Again,
huh?
I think it bottomed. If 17,100 doesn't go, then it's bottomed. So it just all comes down to level by level. Anyway, so I definitely a different practitioner than a lot of Elliott wave analysts out there. But anyway, next question.
Oh, sorry. What are your thoughts on Signature Bank?
I don't know it actually. Is that a crypto related bank? I've never heard of it. I'll look into it if it is. But
the user doesn't exactly elaborate on that, so we'll,
yeah.
I guess, leave it at that.
Yep.
And with that, we'll have to conclude this presentation. So once again, I would like to thank Ryan Wilday so much for joining us here at the Money Show, and thank you for attending this session.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, guys.